The American colossus is currently sinking into a profound battle of wits and potentially a brutal test of raw strength in a devastating Middle Eastern confrontation with Iran. As the world watches oil prices skyrocket, many pointedly look toward President Donald Trump as the architect of this precarious path, realizing his policies have strained the global economy to its breaking point. What was perhaps envisioned as a swift, surgical objective, similar to the initial pressures applied to Venezuela, has instead transformed into a strategic quagmire. Iran has become a tar pit for American intervention, with carrier strike groups tethered to the volatile waters of the Strait of Hormuz, and the defense budget being bled dry by the astronomical costs of long-range aerial campaigns. A massive security vacuum is beginning to emerge across the rest of the globe. This is the exact moment Washington's greatest adversaries have been waiting for. A once-in-a-century opportunity to strike simultaneously and dismantle the international security order that the United States has meticulously constructed over the last 80 years. Observing the Pentagon's distraction and the dilution of its resources, President Vladimir Putin could perceive this as the definitive window to order a total Russian offensive to deliver a knockout blow in Ukraine. Russia has long since transitioned its internal structures into a robust war economy, and Moscow is merely waiting for the precise moment when Western military aid to Kiev fractures. As the US is forced to prioritize firefighting in the Middle East, the logistical and financial lifeline for Ukraine becomes perilously thin, allowing Russia to exploit the exhaustion of Western stockpiles and the fragmentation of NATO's focus. Simultaneously, across the Pacific, Chinese President Xi Jinping may be looking toward the Taiwan Strait with a renewed, steely determination. Military analysts have long issued warnings regarding Beijing's cabbage strategy, a method of surrounding contested areas with layers of maritime militia and naval vessels, or even a total blockade of the island. If the US Pacific Fleet is preoccupied with intercepting Iranian ballistic missiles in the Persian Gulf, the question arises: does Washington possess enough functional warships and aircraft to deter thousands of Chinese landing craft steaming toward Taipei? Meanwhile, a third detonator, perhaps the most unpredictable of all, remains primed on the Korean Peninsula. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un has proven to be an exceptionally keen observer of global shifts, rarely missing a chance to exploit American overextension. When the Pentagon finds itself unable to simultaneously manage three massive, high-intensity theaters of war, Pyongyang may reach a final, fateful decision: to open fire along the 38th parallel. Once the first shots are exchanged, the Korean Peninsula will immediately be engulfed in a sea of fire. However, this time, Seoul's adversary does not rely solely on traditional heavy artillery. They are armed with tactical nuclear warheads mounted on sophisticated hypersonic glide vehicles. This technological leap means that the traditional tripwire defense systems may no longer provide the reaction time necessary to prevent a catastrophic decapitation strike against the South. In this Damocles sword scenario, a core existential question emerges. When the American protector is overstretched and geographically distant, will Seoul realize that right next door, separated only by a narrow strait, exists a massive military and economic power that could serve as its final anchor of survival? That power is Japan. For decades, the relationship between these two neighbors has been defined by friction. Yet in a world where the US umbrella is fraying, the necessity of a regional partnership becomes an unavoidable reality of realpolitik. Japan has often been compared to a dormant volcano, held in check by its pacifist constitution for nearly 8 decades. However, a look at the reality of recent years reveals a different story. Japan is currently undergoing its most aggressive rearmament phase since World War II. Tokyo has shattered the long-standing defense budget ceiling of 1% of GDP, is actively procuring hundreds of Tomahawk cruise missiles, and has successfully converted its Izumo-class helicopter destroyers into true aircraft carriers, capable of operating F-35B stealth fighters. Will Japan remain a bystander, deterred by the Russia-China axis, or will it seize this opportunity to erupt, re-establishing itself as a decisive military empire capable of dictating the fate of East Asia, history provided an answer in 1950 when Japan served as the vital rear area, the singular logistical springboard that saved the US-UN forces at the Passan perimeter. But this time, if war breaks out, Japan's role will not be limited to repairing tanks or sweeping mines. It will likely involve direct combat intervention. Despite Japan's burgeoning capabilities, the Tokyo-Seoul relationship remains the Achilles heel of this security triangle. The ghosts of history and the lingering trauma of the colonial era remain an open, bleeding wound in the South Korean psyche. This sensitivity is so acute that even in a total war scenario, if the Seoul government were to allow Japanese infantry to set foot on the peninsula for reinforcement, it could trigger a domestic insurrection before North Korean tanks even cross the border. Yet, in top-secret operational plans, such as Plan 5055, Japan serves as an irreplaceable umbilical cord for supplies. Bases like Yokosuka and Okinawa are the bedrock of the Pacific. If these locations are targeted by North Korean missiles, Japan will have no choice but to enter the fray to defend its own existence. However, the red line here is razor thin. A single missile bearing the Japanese flag landing on North Korean soil could trigger the 1961 Sino-North Korean Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance, providing Beijing with the perfect legal pretext to openly deploy the People's Liberation Army into the conflict. Many observers still labor under the illusion that the US, Japan, and South Korea form a tightly integrated alliance bloc similar to NATO in Europe. The reality, however, is far more fragmented. Unlike NATO's Article 5 collective defense, the security architecture in East Asia is built on a hub-and-spoke model of bilateral treaties with the US at the center. The most glaring deficiency in this structure is the complete absence of a direct, formal, mutual defense treaty between Tokyo and Seoul. Why does this gap persist? It is because the historical ghosts from the era of Imperial Japanese occupation continue to haunt the present. Sovereignty disputes over maritime islands and unresolved issues regarding wartime atrocities are not just relics of the past. They are active political barriers that make any direct military handshake between the two nations extremely radioactive. If a massive northern assault occurs, the US must theoretically act as an information relay station between Japan and Korea. The lack of a direct unified command structure drastically reduces the speed of reaction, a fatal flaw in a theater where hypersonic missiles can bridge distances in mere minutes. In stark contrast to the friction within the US-Japan-South Korean triangle, the opposing axis is tightening its grip with terrifying efficiency. North Korea has never been a solitary actor on this chessboard. First, we must look at the 1961 Sino-North Korean Treaty. This remains China's only active mutual defense treaty. Its most critical clause: if either party is attacked, the other is obligated to immediately provide assistance by all means, including military force. This effectively means that an attack on Pyongyang is legally and strategically viewed as an attack on Beijing. Furthermore, the latest and most dramatic variable is the recently signed Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement between Russia and North Korea. Moscow, seeking support for its protracted campaign in Ukraine, has provided Pyongyang with a premium insurance card. Russia's involvement brings more than just ammunition. It brings sensitive military technologies, ranging from reconnaissance satellite expertise to advanced ballistic missile guidance that have completely tilted the balance of power in East Asia. Why are China and Russia willing to protect an unpredictable state like North Korea at all costs? The answer lies in two words: buffer zone. For Beijing, the Korean peninsula is the front yard of the mainland. They will never accept a scenario where US troops are stationed at the Yalu River border, or where Washington's radar and missile systems are positioned directly against China's industrial heartland. An existing North Korea, however stubborn it may be, serves as a perfect insulating wall, allowing China to focus its primary military strength toward Taiwan. For Russia, a stable North Korea protects its eastern flank and its vital naval base at Vladivostok, Therefore, any military tremor at the 38th parallel will immediately trigger a geopolitical chain reaction involving the world's most powerful nuclear states. Pyongyang also deeply understands that there is a high-level coordination between the US and Japan to counter the nuclear threat. North Korea knows that to defeat the South, it must strangle the American ability to reinforce the theater. And where do those reinforcements come from? They originate from the massive, high-tech bases situated on Japanese soil. This logistical reality makes Japan an inevitable target in the opening minutes of any peninsula-wide conflict. The naval base at Yokosuka, the home port of the US 7th Fleet, and the air bases in Okinawa are the great umbilical cords of the Pacific. If Pyongyang can neutralize these hubs during the golden hour of the war, American forces in South Korea will be effectively isolated. Consequently, since North Korea's first nuclear test, Plan 5055 has meticulously mapped out a scenario where Japan must become a steel shield to protect these bases at all costs. This plan necessitates that Japan transition from a passive logistics hub into an active combatant, using its world-class navy and air force to keep the sea lanes open. To protect itself, Japan has constructed an incredibly expensive multi-layered defense system. Offshore, Aegis-equipped destroyers armed with SM-3 missiles aim to intercept incoming warheads at the very edge of the atmosphere. If a projectile slips through this first layer, land-based Patriot PAC-3 batteries serve as the final gatekeepers. However, as the saying goes, for every thick shell, there is a sharp drill. North Korea recently debuted the KN-23 tactical ballistic missile, a variant believed to share genetic material with the Russian Iskander. Unlike older, liquid-fueled Scud missiles, the KN-23 uses solid fuel, allowing it to be rolled out and launched in minutes, leaving surveillance satellites almost no time to issue a warning. Most terrifying is its quasi-ballistic trajectory. Instead of a predictable arc, it can hug the edge of the atmosphere and perform erratic maneuvers in its terminal phase to evade radar. This places immense pressure on Aegis and Patriot computers, which struggle to calculate an intercept point for a target that refuses to fly straight. Faced with this existential threat, Japan refuses to remain a mere punching bag for North Korean aggression. Tokyo has aggressively authorized billions of dollars for the purchase of hundreds of Tomahawk cruise missiles from the United States, boasting a range of 1,600 kilometers. The objective is transparent. If Japanese intelligence detects that North Korea is fueling a nuclear strike, Japan will execute a counter-strike to level the launch sites in Pyongyang before they can fire. Yet, this brings us back to the ultimate geopolitical trap. The moment a Tomahawk missile bearing Japanese markings impacts North Korean territory, it triggers the 1961 Sino-North Korean Treaty. Beijing would then possess an unassailable legal pretext to intervene militarily, pouring troops onto the peninsula to defend its ally against Japanese aggression. In this high-stakes game, a single defensive strike by Japan could ironically be the spark that ignites a Third World War.